array. Just to make it clear, I don't really need to do this part because what we could do, we can just use this as it is. However, you know, just for simplicity and to make things easy to follow, I'm creating another array, and this time I'm going to use this array, not the one that's passed. So I'm storing this array in this array. You know, it's a long process, waste of line in the code. However, you know, once you become advanced in programming, you can get rid of this completely, and you know, continue just using this part later on. So just to get into it now, we're going to do pretty much what we did previously. We're going to use a for loop again, and this time it's going to basically read the lines one by one and insert it in sequence on the actual inside the text box. So we're going to use a for loop, if I can get spelling right, for int, and I is less than show line. So basically we've got show line dot. Now we need to know the length of how many elements is inside that array. The way to do that is you put a dot length, and that will give us the size of the array itself, and we increment the loop like so. And this time what we're going to do is we're just going to basically print to the screen. So we're going to print inside that box. Now to do that is we need to know the name of the box. We called it file view, didn't we? File view box. And if I click dot, and this time instead of saying text, because we don't want it to rewrite every time, we're going to say append text, and that will basically add to the previous text that was entered, rather than just printing or replacing the existing text with a new text. We need to append, so we need to concatenate the next string along. Yeah. So what are we going to add in the next string? We're going to basically say show line, whatever is in there, and then we're going to put an I. So I would be 0, the first element in the array would be printed, and then I would be 1, the next element, 2, 3, and so on. So that will be incremented every time it goes around the loop. That I would be incremented. And not forgetting, we need to separate each append of text by a different line, so it looks neater instead of it just being, you know, just thrown into that box. We need to format it in a certain way. So the way I'm going to format it is I'm going to start a new line every time we end a line, and that's pretty much it really. I think we are ready to do a little test to see if it will actually work or not. So I'll save that, and this time we're going to say start. Let's see if that runs. Okay, we have an error, so we need to know what the error is. It says unassigned local variable C1. Basically had a little problem with let's delete that part. Right, so it had a little problem because what we was doing, we was actually checking if the file doesn't exist. So say that was correct. Else, if the file does exist, then we're saying, right, okay, pass the file name, and then we stopped there, and we didn't continue with it. So that it was actually outside the scope, so we had to include it in the scope. So I put these curly braces. So basically we want it to perform all this as one block, and not just that one line and ignore the rest, or just do that and then do this. So if the file doesn't exist, then it would cause a little problem, because then now it's trying to read the file, and we already identified that it didn't really exist, it was never added. So now with a bit of luck it should run this time. So if I click on start, okay, and so now we have the application running. what we want to do is want to click on view file. Let's see what happens up here. It says no file to read. If I click on add file, it says you did not add a file. If I put text and I said add file, it says file added. If I say view file, it says the file doesn't exist because obviously there is no file. Please try a different file name. I say OK, and it throws an exception. Right, so obviously that's what happens when the file doesn't exist, but at least it's identified. We're in debugging mode, just so you know. So we've identified that there is a little problem, and we've also identified that what would happen if the file doesn't exist. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a file.